We need to talk a little bit about some of the things on your calculator for this section. I just want to make sure that you understand them and you have the correct settings. For one, you need to make sure that your mode is in degrees, and your calculator will say degrees at the top if it's in the correct mode. If it's not, simply hit mode and use your arrows to scroll over to degrees and then hit enter. So that's one. If you want to go back to the home screen on the calculator, hit second mode. That quits what you were doing and takes you back. In this section, we will have the trig functions. It will only have the 3 trig functions on there: sine, cosine, and tangent. If you want secant, then you would have to do 1 divided by whatever your cosine was, because that will do the reciprocal. It's the reciprocal, so you have to do the 1 divided by. If you wanted cosecant, you would do 1 divided by sine of whatever you're doing. If you wanted cotangent, you would do 1 divided by tangent. That's how we deal with the cosecant, secant, and cotangent. The other thing that you'll see a lot on this calculator is square root. It's right here. So if you hit second square root, the square root sign pops up on that calculator. Whatever number you need, you just pop it in there and hit enter. So those are some of the things that are on your calculator. If you're trying to find an angle, so if you're given, let's say you're given the cosine of a function and you want to find the angle that it came from, if I type in second cosine, it goes backwards, and so that if you type in the cosine that you have, so if I were to hit square root of 2 over 2, the square root of 2 over 2 happens to be the cosine for 45 degrees, and it will give me the degree measure. So that's what these notations are up above: sine, cosine, and tangent. That's what those are for. Let's see, this button down here goes back and forth between exact and approximate answers. So if I had cosine of 45 and I hit enter, it gives me the exact answer. If I want the decimal answer, I hit that button and it gives me the decimal answer, the approximate answer. So this is a good calculator in that it mostly gives you the exact answers. I was trying to think if there was anything else in this section. I don't think there's anything else in this section. The only other thing that I think you may not recall from another class maybe is some basic math that's there. So let's just look at some of this basic math here. Let me get us a color that's a little bit darker for us to be able to see. Okay, so in a couple of the problems, you have a square root on the bottom of something, and typically in math it's not simplified if we have a square root on the bottom of a fraction. So what we do is we try to get rid of that, and a square root actually has an invisible number of 2 in here. So what it's saying is, if you have the square root of 4, it's saying that 2 times 2 happens to be 4, so since there are 2 of those, the 2 gets to come out, and that's why the square root of 4 is equal to 2. So if I had, let's say, the square root of 8, and I said, well, 8 is 4 times 2, and 4 is 2 times 2, the exact answer for the square root of 8 would be, since there are 2 2's, a 2 gets to come out. This one doesn't have a partner, so it must stay in there. So that's its official answer. Since we can't have square roots in the denominator, since it's square root has that invisible 2 on it, I need 2 of something to get it to come out. So if I were to take this 2, if I had another one, it would come out from underneath the radical. So anytime you multiply by a number over itself, that is 1. And so I can multiply something by a number over itself and not change the value. And then this on the bottom, since there are 2 2's, it actually gets to come out of the radical. And on the top, I'm left with 1 times the square root of 2. So 1 over square root of 2 and square root of 2 over 2 have the same value. This one is just more simplified because we can't have radicals in the denominator. Let's look at another one just to make sure that you guys get that. So let's say I had 3 over square root of, let's say, 6. 6 is 2 times 3. So I don't have 2 of anything. So I'm going to need another 2 and another 3, which means really I still just need another 6. So I would go over here and I would multiply by square root of 6 over square root of 6. And I would get on the top 3 times the square root of 6. And on the bottom, there's 2 of them, so I would get a 6. And because this is a fraction that can be reduced, I reduce that down to 1/2. And my final answer ends up being square root of 6 over 2. So those are some basic math things that you should have had sometime in the past, but maybe you don't remember. Let's do one more. So let's say I have 1 over the square root of 8. 8 is 4 times 2, and 4 is 2 times 2. So 8 is really, a 2 gets to come out and another 2 stays in, which means in order to get rid of the radical, I only need one more 2. So I'll multiply by square root of 2 over square root of 2. The top gives me 1 times the square root of 2. The bottom gives me 2 times this 2 that got to come out, which gives me a 4. So that's how those things are going to work when you're simplifying, and that's what your book is doing when it simplifies something. So I think I've taken care of everything that might be on your calculator or might be some sort of basic math.